Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back from lunch. I find that every time I do one of these sorts of things, I'm always the person that comes on directly after lunch. I don't know what that says about me or how I fit into all of these things, but there you go. In this session, we're moving to the individual and interpersonal levels of that socio-ecological model that we started with earlier today. And our panel is going to speak to the perspectives of communication and culturally and linguistically appropriate services from the lens of patients, families, and clinicians. And I can't thank all of our speakers this morning enough for teeing up this panel so well. But given that this is a patient, family, and clinician panel, we're going to start with the patient voice in a video courtesy of Liz Margolis and the National LGBT Cancer Center. As soon as the video ends, I'm going to invite my fellow panelists to come up and join me in the front. But for this moment, it is my privilege to now introduce you to Jay.
I'm Jay Callio. I'm 58. I'm a two-time cancer patient. I knew from the age of 3 that I felt I was a boy in a girl's body. I could hardly tolerate living that way. I was raised very, very poor as a child. What I mainly remember from my childhood is being incredibly hungry and seeking food. Later, as I went into school, in my naivete, came out at the age of 12, and thereafter it unleashed this horrible experience of assault, harassment, and attack. I was able to get into college despite the fact that I didn't complete high school, and it was because I had perfect scores on SATs that I took in the 8th grade, and I had straight A's up until the time I left school and dropped out. So all the colleges I applied to accepted me. I attribute the fact that I am alive today to being white, because if I hadn't been white, I am absolutely certain that I would not have survived all the life-threatening events that I lived through. I also attribute my survival to books and to all the people who have written so intelligently and beautifully about social justice. And when I finally landed in New York City, I found a civil rights movement, I found a feminist movement, I found an LGBT movement just starting that gave me the community that I needed desperately all those years. I knew those people were out there, and I did whatever I had to do to find them. When I finally transitioned at the age of 50 to be a transgender man, it was like the seas parted in my life. I was finally one of the kings of the universe, one of the masters of the universe. I was a white male in this society. I found that when I talked, people stopped interrupting me. People took my ideas seriously. People accepted my authority and leadership in situations. The one caveat here is that when I had to go for health care, and specifically when I had to go for cancer care, which mattered more than any other health care I had ever needed in my life, my health care providers had to know that I was not, as they might see it, a real man. And I found I would plummet off this cliff of respect and authority that I had gained with the outside world into a pit of being a freak, mentally ill, someone who was needing psychiatric care rather than cancer care. I have a second cancer now. I have a highly aggressive lung cancer for which there is basically no chemotherapy that works. I think my body is just worn out from fighting all my life. I feel exhausted by the struggle with discrimination and bigotry and poverty. I've remained soft inside, and that's what I love. I still love people. I still forgive people.
So thank you again, Liz, for sharing that video with us and letting us share it with the audience today. My name is Darci Graves, as you might remember from this morning, and I'm with the CMS Office of Minority Health. And just waiting for my slides to pop up. And as I mentioned, this is a panel dedicated to patients, families, and clinicians. This panel resonates with me deeply as a cancer survivor, as the daughter and niece and cousin of survivors, as well as someone who has dedicated her career to teaching and advocating for effective communication and culturally and linguistically appropriate services. Like Jay, I too carry a great deal of privilege with me every day. But unlike Jay, I was able to carry that privilege into my healthcare experiences. My privilege showed every time that I was viewed as assertive rather than as aggressive or angry. When I insisted that my tests be done sooner rather than later, and when I gently called out my radiologist for not reading my chart prior to giving me his clinical advice. You know, when he said that we could just wait and monitor what turned out to be my stage 2 tumor, which was growing exponentially inside my chest. My privilege showed when I laid face down in that breast MRI machine, and the happy images that they had placed in the sightline were of 3 happy, smiling, white babies. When I knew I was in a predominantly African-American county, and obviously breast cancer brings with it a lot of issues when it comes to reproduction. It also showed when I heard an anecdote at a meeting much like this one about an individual with cerebral palsy who was undergoing radiation for her breast cancer. And in the absence of straps to help hold her arms in place, the clinician chose to break out the masking tape to keep her arms in position. Our panelists today will talk about the importance of effective communication and ways to ensure that it is not, in fact, an illusion. About making sure that services are respectful of and responsive to an individual's cultural beliefs and practices and is delivered in a manner in which they can understand. And recognizing all the aspects of an individual's cultural identity, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, language, urbanicity, rurality, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability status, religiosity, spirituality, socioeconomic status, and so many more. And just as importantly, the intersectionality between all of these, because we cannot tease apart any aspect of these cultural identities. So with that, welcome to session 3, where our panel will help us wade through the information and hopefully get through to solutions that will help not only our patients, families, and clinicians. I would like to now welcome our panelists for this session up to the stage. Dr. Alice Homan Chen, Deputy Director and Chief Medical Officer for the San Francisco Health Network and Professor of Clinical Medicine at UCFS Department of Medicine. Dr. Justin Sanders, faculty in the Serious Illness Care Program at Ariadne Labs, attending physician in the Psychosocial Oncology and Palliative Care Department at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and Brigham and Women's Hospital, and instructor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, and Liz Margolis, founder and executive director of the National LGBT Cancer Network. All of their amazing bios can be found in the booklet that you have today. And with that, I will turn to Alice and see if would you like to present from there or over here? Okay, can we move some things around and have Justin's slides come up? I was following whatever the slides were saying. I thought so too. Come on, it doesn't matter. I think we're pulling up Justin's slides, so we'll start with Justin.